I am Sonja Vlaar and I am in the book with 2 articles. Chapter 10 I co-created with Vicky Miete and Tanya Murphy-Ilibasic and is about co-creation. In chapter 14 I write about inclusion and the brain, and that is such an important topic because it is about the question who is part of the group and who is not. Do I belong to a group or do I not? And when this question is seen from the perspective of the brain, inclusion is all about how our brain creates bias. I'm a coach, consultant, and a virtual facilitator. Work with leaders and teams using applied neuroscience to create magic out of messiness. I hope you will enjoy reading our book. Shall we start? Yeah?
We shall. This looks good. So welcome everybody. Hey, divine. I'll introduce myself for the moment. That sounded a bit odd. Something just backfired on me here.
Yeah.
So my name is Karen. I am also one of the CIQ collective. I'll be the host and chatting to you alongside Sonja. Of course, we have Uta. Uta, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm just the tech host in the background, looking at the chat box, helping out where help is needed. If you need anything, pop a message in the chat box, and I hope I will be there to assist you. It's Sonja's stage and Karen's stage, and we are curious to hear more about inclusion in the brain, I think.
Absolutely. And
thank you.
You are anything but just.
Yes.
So, thank you.
So I'm here, so we'll obviously we're all here to hear what Sonja has to share with us. But just before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping, which pretty much Uta has already said. So if you have any challenges, just put it into the chat. Really, this is the 15th of our regulars tables. So many of you will remember, or the reasons you're here is that we wrote a book, like 15 of us from the European CIQ Collective wrote a book. For all those who have it on their bookshelf, you can share it, that's fine. Yay. Right, so this is chapter 15 of our regulars tables. Uta, what chapter were you?
Good question. I don't remember.
I know I was chapter 9.
Chapter on transparency, that's all I know.
That's it. Right? So we've all had a little bit of many of us have had a turn at this. And so we welcome Sonja on this journey with us. So the members of the European CIQ Collective came together, as you're probably aware. We are certified CIQ coaches. Our mentor and dear Judith, who did leave us back in 2018, we came together through this book and through this journey of conversational intelligence. But our books are starting to go beyond all of that, and with everything that's happened to us over the last couple of years, we certainly needed to have changing conversations for a changing world. So that is us. And Sonja, I would like to.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Wow. So I'm happy to see some familiar faces. It's wonderful, and from different parts of the world. Happy you are all here, and I'm especially happy and glad that we can still connect online with people from all over the world despite COVID. Here in the Netherlands, we just are coming out from a hard lock, and the restaurants are not yet open here. And we can't do very much, but honestly, to be honest, COVID gave me a lot of time to study and to write and to read. And I studied about the topics of the functioning of the brain. And right now, this topic is about something that I wrote 2 years ago. It was before the pandemic that I wrote that article, and it makes a lot of difference, as I will explain later.
So before COVID, as many of us probably did. You traveled a lot around the globe.
Oh yeah. Yes, let me tell a little bit about myself. After I did a first study that was nutrition and preventive healthcare in Wageningen in the Netherlands. And after that, I went working to Mozambique in Africa. There I lived for 5 years, and my eldest son, who's now already 39, he was born there. And when I came back, I was working as a trainer and as a coach and as a consultant, a lot on topics of gender equity and diversity and inclusion already. But it had a very different meaning in those days. Yeah? And then I did a second master's study in the Netherlands to become a supervisor. And since 2004, I have my own little one-woman company from where I'm working with individual and teams as a coach. So that's what I'm doing. And
yeah. So where does that passion now take you?
Yeah, well, what makes my heart tick, and already for many years, is working with clients and bringing them closer to their intrinsic motivation and for them to create a better relationship with themselves and with others. So last year, COVID gave me a lot of time. I started a new collaboration with an organization that has developed an instrument for analyzing patterns of vulnerability. Vulnerability and resilience. And if you go into that topic, well, it has a lot to do with the brain. And we can only touch some things that I wrote about 2 years ago, but this is now a work in progress and for the coming years. And I'm really passionate about that. And it includes an approach also from applied neuroscience. And I see some faces that I know also from other gatherings about applied neuroscience. So I'm very happy to be here with you today. And let's get in.
Go for it.
So chapter 15, most of you who are here probably are familiar with the topic of inclusion from the angle of diversity and inclusion. Is it? Yeah. So diversity has gotten a lot of attention for the last years in many organizations and includes diversity topics, not only about gender, but also about race and religion and any social category that's in the minority of the population. And mostly the two concepts, diversity and inclusion, they are mentioned together, which is really great. And I do stimulate that. But when you have a closer look, diversity and inclusion are really different concepts and hence have different challenges.
We talk a lot about the two, actually. So what do you think is the big difference between the two of them?
So that they're really not the same. I would say that diversity approaches, they require inclusion, but diversity is about counting people and inclusion is about making people count. So diversity is about having that mix of people, and inclusion is about having the mix work and having all the voices heard. So having the mix work starts with your own individual whole self. And having all that inner voices of yourself, of those having heard. And that's your interpersonal conversational intelligence, you could say. And here's where the importance of the brain and systems work comes in. But I suggest let's not talk about conclusion, but let's do inclusion and do an exercise that we prepared for you to experience it.
So we're going to do an icebreaker. We are going to use Miro. We'll share the link in a moment, but I might just I'll share the screen first. And then we can talk you a little bit through it. Then we'll put the link into the chat and then we'll set you up from there. So let me share the screen for a moment. So here we have the activity, and when you all come in, you all come into here and Charlotte's in. Do you want to explain a little bit, Sonja, or you want me to?
It is an activity to do the inclusion together, and it's a group activity, and it's going pretty fast. So the leading question is above here: what 5 inclusion activities matter the most to you personally? So it is all about you. It's not about your company policy or your team. And what do you need to be included? And the link is in the chat. So let's perhaps you can explain how to drag and do that, Karen. Yes,
exactly. So what we'll ask you to do is drag and drop this. So these just a few little dots, and all you need to do is change my hand, drag these little dots and put them to whichever ones are the most important to you. So you can take as many dots as you like, but go to about 5 of the statements, and you can put the dots underneath or beside is fine. And then you can just drag another one to whatever you think is the next one. And that's literally all you'll do. We'll set the timer with a little bit of music, and you can, I'll just put those back. Whoops, not that one. That's it. And then when the time's up, we'll be able to go for it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, because I just need to get the link actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, here we go. Copy. Bear with me for a moment. Too many things on the screen. There we go. So there is the Miro link. So come and join me on Miro. We'll see you over there. Anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and shout out.
Yeah.
I'll see you all as you come in. So I know that there's quite a few in here now. Yep, excellent. So all you need to do is grab one of those little dots and move it to where you want it to be. I'm actually going to just do something very quickly. I'm going to lock this. There we go. That's better. And now you can move your dots to wherever. The music will go. Timer's on.
Thanks, Ute. Yeah.
After going on the word. There we go.
Oh. Yeah. Time is up already?
Not quite.
Okay.
We can always cut it short.
Yes, yes, let's. It's nice when you share the screen.
Yep.
So we can see the results.
I'll share it again.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
We still have people moving around and dots around the place.
Yeah.
And I think the dots have stopped moving, so we can stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything, still some dots are moving. It's always.
Yeah. You can keep moving as you're explaining. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we can see it's very personal, and we have the dots all over the place. And we think that's very different how you answer the activity, what activity mattered the most to you personally. Yeah, I learned this exercise from whole brain thinking, and Anna will know it probably. Is it? Yeah, I think it's always, yeah, it's a lovely exercise because it builds a lot upon safety and for having inclusive conversations, because all your opinions is here, and let's see how many definitions there are of inclusion. You probably have yours as well when you're working with clients, but we don't go in there. What is your working definition? But what they all have in common, those definitions, is that they're all about creating psychological safety. So yeah, so you need to remove the barriers for engagement for all of them, and inclusion then, which is about having the people in, is very important. It was Forbes, for example, that mentioned, and that was before the pandemic, that people who feel that their voice is heard, they are 4.6 times more engaged than people who are not. And 4.6 times more productive. So that was a statistic before COVID entered in our lives. So you can imagine what COVID did with this number is that it grew exponentially, as we all now know how important it is to let your voice hear in all those online meetings. So the topic of inclusion has become even more important.
So what do the actual colors mean? I'm not
sure okay. Yeah, of course.
Just curious.
That's a great question. So let me answer it with a slide about those colors. And it's a slide about the organizing principles and the architecture of the brain. It's actually of Herman International. So what goes on in our brain when we are thinking? And this question holds for thinking in general, not about something specific. We can talk about patterns in our thinking. And that brain, that little thing, that is amazing, and it is an intricate organ. And there's a growing need for instruments that explain how our thinking works, and that we don't need a PhD Ute to explain that in a webinar like this. Ute is in her PhD, and she can explain it very well later from a very scientific point. But these 4 colors, they represent the 4 modes of thinking preferences of the whole brain model. And of course it is a metaphor. It doesn't mean that we have 4 brains. There are many misconceptions about brain. There are people who think that we have 3 or 4 or 6 or even 7 brains. But contrary to these popular beliefs, we only have one brain, one brain-body system. And all the functions cannot that much be localized in specific parts. So it is just a metaphor. And you see A, B, C, D for the colors. And these are 4 interconnected, specialized modes of that function together as a whole. And you can imagine that you can, for each person, you can create a profile, which is on the right. And that is an individual profile with thinking preferences. So most people, they have a combination, of 2 of those colors, let's say, and others have 3, and very few have 1. And the blue is about what? So it's the logical, the analytical, fact-based, and quantitative. Can you get to the next slide? This one. So that is the blue. And the green is about the organization. It's sequential, it's planned and detailed. The yellow is more the holistic, intuitive, integrating and synthesizing. And the red is interpersonal, feeling-based, kinesthetic, and emotional. So as said, most of us have a combination, but you can make your own profile of this. And if you like, we could talk hours about that, but we are not going there. It was just an exercise for inclusion, but we go now into another topic of the brain. So that's where the colors come from. If
we go into forces,
it's better. Let's go into forces. So if we go on page 171, there is a quote, and if you like, you can show it on the slide, as not everybody has mentioned. Okay. The quote is this one. Although over thousands of centuries, human beings have evolved and we are now in the possession of a sophisticated brain with thinking capabilities, human behavior is still very much impacted by the visceral bodily reactions. Yes. And as CIQ professionals, we learned from Judith Glaser in her course about the importance of our visceral reactions. And she has a tool about that, which is called forces. But before we get to the acronym of forces, I would explain what the forces mean by an image, and that is on the next slide, which is an image of a living bridge. This is a bridge in the northern part of India, and it is not built with bricks and cement, but it is really made from living plants. And the tribes that live on each side of the bridge, they have to maintain it, and it is vital for their survival. And it is a symbol for the living and the dynamic forces in that community. The acronym is explained above. It's the F of fairness, and then we have ownership, reciprocity. Oh yeah, I have here relationship, cooperation, expression, and status. So this is the meaning of the forces exercise, which is a CIQ tool. And fairness, you can think of how fair do we perceive that exchanges between people are. For instance, example with a bridge, do we all have fair access to that bridge and traffic to and from the bridge? When it comes to ownership, what are the rights and control over the property? Is what are the mutual agreements about the traffic over the bridge, for example? Relationship, how safe do we feel with others? So can I trust that the green plants of our bridge are rooted well in your soil on the other side, where the other tribe lives? Cooperation or joint effort of cooperation. So when one person hands over a plant, for the bridge, will that person plant it in the soil? Can I trust that cooperation? And will they water the plants on a daily rhythm? So that keep the bridge remains strong. And then expression is, do we all have a voice and express what matters to us? Can imagine that the communities that talk about what kind of plants do we use for the bridge and the renewal. And also the status is about the relative importance to others. So who is allowed to cross the bridge and who is not? So the forces is that acronym that helps you talking about vital instincts that are really deeply rooted inside us. And yeah, you already saw it now. It goes so fast. Yeah, you are fast, Karen. you already know what was coming, but it's, those vital instincts, we are not aware of them. They live in our brain body system, but they are not in our conscious awareness. And when you see that all these aspects, they are quite about the social relationships between people. And they represent threats that we are facing in our lives. And then these forces, they start so very hard, fast. It already, it starts in 0.07 seconds. It happens when you meet someone and they are really put on by the tone of how someone speaks, the words, do they hurt? Is there a rejection or a risk involved? Do you feel included or excluded? Yeah, the inclusion very specifically comes in. Is there anger? Is this about territory? Are we competitive? Or is it about status? So, and it's another acronym for threats, but actually those forces, those vital instincts, they start working when we are threatened. And it goes very, very fast.
Sonja, when we're thinking about forces and threats, I'm thinking about the brain. So how fast and how does the brain actually scan the environment? How does it really pick up on? And that's an awful lot for us to be thinking about in a very short period of time.
It's funny. It's the brain is doing all that work, and we are not aware of it completely. And the brain is continuously scanning for danger in the environment. So, and those processes have become very hardwired in our brain. So the brain focuses automatically on things and objects that are important for our survival. And it all happens unconsciously. Yeah? In neuroscience language, we talk about an inner valuing of that process, and it's also called value tagging. So we have a value tagging system, and we are mostly unaware of it. And I will explain it with a story with the next slide. So the brain continuously scans the environment for danger. I lived in the northern part in Mozambique, as I told you, and it was at the time that there was a local war going on. The ruling party, Frelimo, was in war with a guerrilla movement of Renamo. And it was, in those days, it was dangerous to travel the road because of the landmines. So we always traveled in a convoy of vehicles, and we would never be the first vehicle in the morning to travel the dangerous roads. And in those days, I created the habit of being very alert, checking with my eyes the condition of the soil. You have that red soil in Mozambique, and I was looking whether there was some fresh soil on the road. And the strange thing, for many years when I was already back in the Netherlands, I still was examining intensely the asphalt roads, looking out for red fresh soil, because that could mean that a landmine was placed. And of course, intellectually, I know that the perfect roads, the Dutch roads, they have no landmines, but my brain was still scanning for those threats. And it took me 3 years to desensitize my brain. Still looking for it. So it was my vital instinct what still was doing that. And our brain actually decides what information is we need and what not. So our brain is not including all the information. It's impossible for our brain. We got so many impulses from outside the world, but also from our own bodies, that our brain impossibly can digest, can process all that information. And so it's scanned and it excludes information. And it's a very, very old mechanism of our brain-body system. Yeah.
So we were talking here about, I think you've already sort of covered this in some ways, but did you want to expand a bit more on that old mechanism of our brain-body system? It's funny, you reminded me of living in different parts of the world also, which you're somewhat familiar with, and you live in this heightened sense of this heightened space, and it does take time. Even when I moved to a remote village in Scotland, I was still like terrified of not having a big 6-foot fence around, And I mean, that wasn't from my childhood, that was just from living somewhere for 4 years. So it doesn't take long either for that to kick in and then to really become part of your inner dynamic, I suppose.
Yes. And then our brain has not evolved very much with the evolution. That mechanism is still very old, and we are not living anymore in the cages, and there are no lions and there are no bears, and we have fences, yes, but actually the threats we are facing now, most of them are social. And that is a very important fact. Even working with all those tools online and so, threats are mostly social, but still the forces, the vital instincts, they are expressing the threats via that dynamics as that, and interpreted that our brains feels threatened.
Absolutely.
If you go in the book, Karen, or in the next slide, there's an image also about our senses, because it's not now before one prior. Here you have the senses. For instance, it is also our body that senses so many signals that our brain has to digest. Every morning when you wake, you might feel the bed sheet against your skin. Or maybe you hear sounds outside from the traffic, or if you're lucky, you can hear birds singing. And with all these sensory organs, we register touch, temperature, smell, and vision. But the information comes through, so not only externally, but also from inside our body. And our brain processes all that information from our visceral systems and our thoughts and our feelings. So it's quite a lot, and the brain is constantly bombarded with external and internal information, which most of it we are not aware of. And that was the amazing thing that I came to realize when I wrote that article, that most of it we are not aware of. Yeah. So most of the information the brain is paying attention to is unconscious. And for instance, the information from our heart or gut. Imagine if we had to consciously put our heart to pump the blood, that we can't do that. But it enables our body and our living and our survival. And yeah, we are now getting to understand better that our brain is excluding most of the information. Yeah, and that's not because it wants it, but it just happens. And yeah, what do we exclude? It depends a lot on how our brain is hardwired and what kind of thinking preferences we have. Think of the inclusion activity that we did. If you prefer, for instance, the blue thinking, yeah, then you will prefer the facts and the hard information. If you prefer a red kind of thinking, you will prefer more the interrelationship with other people. So yeah, so far so good. Let's see where we are in time. If we have time to do a quick poll. Well, I think we skipped the polls, Ute. Yeah.
No, I think you have time.
Yeah, do we have time? Okay, let's get one in then. Yeah, let's go in. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
So I will launch the first poll then. Okay.
Yeah. Let's get active a little bit. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of talking. Hi, Marianne. Haven't seen you yet. Yeah. So it's a quiz. So if we know that that little brain of ours is only 1 to 1.5 kilo, yeah, and it is about 2% of our body weight, what percentage of the body's available oxygen is used by your brain? Let's do the poll. Yeah.
You know, I was just sitting here thinking, I actually don't know.
What do you think?
What do you think? Wait a minute. Nearly got. So we got.
Still waiting for some people to vote. 75% have participated. Okay, maybe the three of us haven't, so I'll end the poll, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So the right answer. Yeah, can you share the results, Ute?
Yes.
Yeah, look. Okay, wow. So 15% of you are thinking that it is 20%. More, almost half is 30%, and 38% thinks it's 40%. And the right answer is 20%. Yeah.
Really?
So, but you're all quite right. It's a lot, you know. So that brain is really voracious. Is that English? Voracious or voracious? I don't know how to pronounce.
Voracious.
Voracious in the energy it uses. It's a lot. 1/5. Yeah. Let's do another quiz about this. So, and this is quiz number 2. It's what percentage of the body is available, energy of the body that is available is used by the brain. Yes. What percentage of the available energy is used by the brain?
Okay, so 78% participated. I'll end the poll, share the results.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, you see a mix, and the right answer is what most of you have guessed. It's 30%. And so these quizzes, they show you that, we talk that the brain must decide what bits it will pay attention to and what not. But it does it most efficiently because it is only 2% of the total body weight, and it uses 20% of the available energy. And moreover, it takes priority in the use of energy in our body. So we can say that the brain's most important job is not rationality, it's not emotion, it's not imagination, it's not creativity, it's not empathy, but its job is just to control the body, to manage that body-brain system by predicting energy needs before they arise. And it has a lot to do with those vital forces, scanning for danger. That is where the energy goes to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this was an exercise. If we continue with the article, I started the article with a quote: "If you happen to have a brain, then you are biased." And well, I define in the book, I define bias as the shortcut that the brain takes to make snap judgments before we realize that we are misunderstanding other people. So we have now come to understand that that brain, it has to decide what information it will process, what it will take out. It will focus on those things that are dangerous, are vital forces that play a huge role. And it is a function of the brain to protect us against the danger. But it has all those biases built in. And in the book, I write about a concept that is from Bowlby, and Bowlby is a psychiatrist and also the founder of the theory of attachment styles. And he has a term that he mentions is defensive exclusion. So Bowlby says that if somehow we face a threat, that our brain will defensively exclude a lot of information and stick to those patterns that we are already used it. So our brain really mitigates, those threats. And that is actually how bias in the brain is created. So unconsciously we exclude information to avoid suffering, to avoid emotional pain. And this all goes very, very fast, as we have seen. At the right of this slide, you see an image, and when we, it is a ladder. It's also climbing up that ladder. It is also a film roll, is how we make stuff up in our brain, how we make stories in our brain. And it is another tool from Judith Glaser from Conversational Intelligence that is called the ladder of conclusions. And it starts at the bottom. You can still see it. There's the word conversations. And in the conversations, when we are having conversations, those vital instincts, those forces, they're all playing a role, but very unconsciously. And when we climb up the ladder, those conversations, if there are threats in the conversations, it will start up bioreactions. Another quote from Judith is also, "Words create worlds." So someone uses a certain word, and bioreactions, which are chemical reactions with all kinds of chemical stuff between one neuron and the other, they are started up. And this is done by the neurotransmitters, and they make that we in our body get certain feelings. We all heard about some neurotransmitters and know, for instance, that cortisol can make us angry. And those feelings, they influence our thoughts, and further on we develop certain beliefs, and then we draw our conclusion. And this is the way that we make stuff up. Climbing up the ladder is like an automatic movie in our brain that makes us judge other people. And human thinking normally starts on the top with the conclusions. We start on the top with that what we want to believe. And in that process, we reject a lot of information that doesn't fit our internal coherence yeah, of what we already know, and we exclude. And in this way, the bias is created. And unconscious bias leads to exclusion of information in the brain, and hence also can lead to social exclusion of other people. In the book, I give an example. We will not go into detail here, but it's an example that I have experienced in a meeting we had as a group in Bavaria in Germany in 2018, where all this happened. And I was walking up the ladder, got to certain conclusions, and yeah, how did I become aware of that? I just was noticing that my body was stepping back, and all things have happened, the thoughts happened in my brain. You can read the story in the book. We will not go there now. Yeah. Yeah, and if you go to the next slide, you can imagine that quite some brain fog can happen on top of the ladder. Eh? But the good news is that we can also step down the ladder. Yeah, and that we can mitigate the bias by actively stepping down the ladder again. And in the book, I also give you these steps. First, you prepare it, you connect with the other person, you share your stories, how you climbed up the ladder, you discover the impact it has being climbed up on the ladder, and discover the ripple effect, and then you attune to each other. So in the book are the steps given. Yeah, it's quite some information, this, and I thought perhaps it is an idea to do some breakout rooms. And yeah, see what does it take for you to become more inclusive. Yeah, either using these steps or using the tool of the ladder of conclusions or talking about the vital instinct. That's all possible. Yeah.
So we make it small groups. Would you like a small conversation?
Yeah.
There's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And
groups of 3. It's okay, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And we'll probably, a couple of us might end up there, but we can either go or stay. So we'll put you into breakout rooms. Isn't it nice? About 2 years ago, we would have had to explain that. I don't think we have to do that anymore. The wonders of how far we've come and what our brain has decided to include. Okay, so we'll send you off into groups. We'll call you back out when we're ready. Let me go in. Let me create. What's down here? No problems. That's what I want. Oh, I think we'll only do what, 4 minutes?
Yeah. So the question is what you believe it will take for you to become more inclusive, and what you as a coach can do.
Yep. And if I have to move people around in the background, I shall do. So go and have some small conversations, and we'll see you back here in 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The one thing we haven't managed yet is to improve the exit from a Zoom group session, unfortunately.
Yeah, we all.
It always seems like somebody just closed the door.
Yeah, it always comes to a sudden, at least in our group. Yeah.
Always.
Okay. It would be nice if we can share a little bit about a great example that you had in your group. If you could share it in the main session.
Feel free to unmute and share if you feel like it.
Yeah, so I'll start.
Oh, hi, James.
So hi, my internet's a bit dodgy, so I hope you can hear me all. So yes, the one that I shared in the group was with a client. So I used the ladder of conclusions to help myself so that I could help the client, because what was happening was it was fine in the sessions. We had great sessions, but he would, in between sessions, he would send emails that made me feel physically sick. Yeah, and it was his way of processing what we'd gone through, and often it was slower than, you know, in the meeting, but they were so long. I didn't know whether I was meant to respond to them. They were really negative, that it was just horrible for a period of time. Yeah. So the ladder of conclusions was really useful there. Yeah. So that was the one that I shared, and there was another one in our group, but I'll let somebody else speak.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
And when you're bringing, I think, the different mediums into it as well, so you're getting these messages here, and then what you're hearing, what you're seeing. So I'm assuming, Sonja, you're getting a whole lot of reactions.
Yeah, and then figuring out what exactly is the stimulus, eh? Is it that negative thought, or is it the length of the letter, or is it the tone, the way, or some words? Yeah, I once have been triggered by just one word, and the person doesn't know, but pew of the letter. Yeah.
Fabulous. So we've got about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, one more from the groups. Yeah.
Anyone? I see a few faces.
Perhaps, Corin, if I could share. Lovely to see everyone. It's just heartwarming to connect again.
Yeah.
I think, and Elamika, we had such a lovely conversation that we didn't really run into so much the issue. But I think that's for the question in point. However, I must say that I think Jane, your point really touched in terms of how are you showing up, or how is your client showing up? And I think that's one of the first things of going down the ladder of conclusions, is because it's first they kind of pause and ponder. Oh, hold on a second, how am I showing up? Is that good or not? And so creating that space where you can have a client, or in my case, my various teams that I run. First step is okay. So creating that space for the person to then show up, and then then discussing that ladder or moving down those steps. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, psychological safety at the beginning and that I'm happy you mentioned it, Anton, because of course knowing all this, you can prime your brain, that it doesn't happen so fast. If you know what your triggers are and what your bias are. But the problem is we don't know all them, because it goes all unconsciously, so we can only experience them. And then once you have experience, then you can do something in the conversations to try to step down the ladder. Sometimes can be very complex.
So it's so true, Sonja.
Yeah.
And so true. And I think, as Judith said, learning from our worst conversations, sometimes that needs to come to the top of the list. And then what is our worst conversation? How do we then look at ourselves and look at our clients, present that to team or to client? Excellent point.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we've got to the end of our hour, and thank you so much for your contributions, for listening and being with me. I hope you enjoyed, and that please read the book, because I just got into some of the points. There's much more in there, and I also realized that perhaps I might have written it now different after the COVID, but you're welcome. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sonja. It really has got a lot in it, and it's worth reading that chapter. So you'll see in the chat that Uta has put some links in there because all of this is recorded and is available. So all of the regulars tables that have gone before to today, and including today, will be there. So you can always go back and have a review of those regulars tables of all the different chapters if you want to listen to them, or instead of read them, or both. You can turn it into your own little podcast. So thank you so much for that. We've also sent you can also go to our website, which is the crqeurope.com, and Changing Conversations for the page. You can also get this on Amazon and wherever other good books are sold, I think. Say that again. And the other nice thing is that there's a second volume coming very, very soon. It will be out in Marchish,
Well, we don't know exactly when.
But we're getting there.
2 weeks.
It's getting there.
We are working hard towards the publication date, and that's also why we cannot yet announce the next Regulars table. It's in the pipeline. We have 3 more chapters of the volume 1 book that that could host a Regulars table, but we are not there yet. We will keep you posted on the regular channels like LinkedIn, mailing lists. You will find out when the next one is up. And as Karen said, volume 2 is in the pipeline. And again, from my opinion, from what I've seen so far, interesting stuff to read. Interesting case studies around COVID and how this has changed the world.
The way that we work.
Absolutely. BC.
Yes.
Okay.
Casey. Yeah. Whole new meaning. Sonja.
Yeah. Perhaps we can stop the recording here and.